Folks, this Sunday in London, Ontario at Smash Wrestling's Any Given Sunday, he's going to be facing Vaughn Vertigo, a match that's 10 years in the making, a match that was given really because Vaughn released a fantastic promo that Matt saw, our guest right now. I just gave it away, even though I've been promoting him for the last 2 hours. He saw it and he said, I want to do this match. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only M-Dog. Matt Cross joins us right now. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good. How are you doing?
Thanks for joining us.
Doing all right.
All right, I gotta ask this right off the bat. One of my favorite wrestling video games ever, Backyard Wrestling. How did this come about? How are you featured in this game, and any memories from the game?
Yeah, it's really crazy. When the Backyard Wrestling videotapes came out, the guys that were in charge were sort of floating all these things our way. They're like, this is going to be huge. There's going to be a movie. There's going to be a video game. You're going to be on Jenny Jones. So we didn't really know what to believe. Some things came true, some things didn't. So we're sort of thinking, well, there's no possible way there's going to be a video game. Now, as I remember it, there was a company called Epic Pro Wrestling out in California that booked Josh and I. We went out for the show. Ultimo Dragon was on it. We were so excited. The show ended up getting canceled. So we were flown to LA. We're sitting at the hotel. We don't know what to do. And then a bunch of the IDOS guys that were making the game were supposed to go to the show. So they were like, oh, the show's canceled. Don't worry. Come to the studio. See the video game that you're in. That was sort of my first, this is real. Up to that point, so we went to a studio where room after room, people are working on models, working on computers, and they're showing us this game that's already well into development. And I'm like, wait, what? And as we enter the rooms, the developers are looking up and they're like, oh, wow, wait, come over here. Because there's guys that have been designing our faces, getting to meet us. So they're like, I want to see if the character looks like you. And I want to see if, and it was surreal because, again, I didn't even know it was a real thing. So it was just completely bizarre. And I'm like 21 at the time or something. So just so much to take in. It never really hit me. I kept waiting I'm like, someday it's going to hit me that I was in a game. And it came out in October of 2003. So it's over 20 years ago. So that's what I think is crazy. Like, how many people every weekend come to watch me wrestle that are 20 years old, are 19 years old, are 18 years old. They weren't even born and it came out.
Did you have to sign anything for it, or they just like, we're putting you in the game?
We're saving that for the book. There's a reason I wasn't in the second one.
That was kind of my follow-up, is like, you weren't in the second one, so I didn't know if there was a story there.
So the teaser is essentially, no, we didn't sign anything. And what a whirlwind and a lesson and a craziness, and but whatever. Mario, Zelda, me. I feel like I was immortalized to some degree in a game. But essentially we didn't get paid. So check out wrestlingisforever.com. There's a plug for you.
Didn't Ice-T say that he wasn't paid for the game that he did for Def Jam? Who was that?
Oh, I don't remember.
Someone recently said they weren't paid for Def Jam. So anyway, that's not important. Let's talk about this Sunday. Let's talk about your match against Vaughn Vertigo at Any Given Sunday in London for Smash Wrestling. We talked about the video that Vaughn produced that you retweeted and said, my dude shines a brighter light on a singular story than any company has in 20 plus years. Looking forward to this match. Talk about your relationship with Vaughn. Talk about this match and how much you're looking forward to this on Sunday.
I thought that video was great. It was really cool. I think I'm one of the most misunderstood guys sort of in professional wrestling. I come from a punk rock background, from the world of punk. And there have been bands throughout history. I think NoFX recently did a good job of sort of summarizing it. And they were like, you can, as an underground punk band, aim for the stars, sign to a major label, become a big thing, and then what happens so often is you have this very short-lived, you flame, burn out, and then you're done because your fans have turned their back on you. So if you don't make it, you're kind of screwed because you've destroyed and cashed in your punk credibility. So I have always falsely believed that there's some equivalent to that in the wrestling business. Now, 25 years in, I realize that I was 100% wrong. I don't really think there is this concept of selling out in wrestling. So if I had it all to do again, I completely messed up. That said, I was like a working class wrestler. I go out, I do the shows, I'm busy, I'm active, I'm living, breathing, I'm the moving spirit of professional wrestling. So no one has told that story because I don't belong to anyone. So if I was under one banner, then they would, I would hope, tell that story. No one helped me. No one did anything. There was no blueprint. I started in Josh's backyard down the street and said, I don't know, maybe we could do something. Fast forward a couple of years, I've now wrestled in 28 countries and 47 states. No one's done that ever. I don't know if anyone ever will. No one has. So I'm the last trailblazer, the last pioneer in the professional wrestling business. I think that's what Vaughn touched on in his video. And he did such a good job of it. And he is, in a lot of ways, like following in my footsteps. Like there is no blueprint for this thing. I invented it. And he's sort of, he and a lot of other guys are inspired by that and moving forward under that banner. And I just thought that was really cool because I don't know, you don't think of yourself in that way, and then to see it was touching. I was like, oh wow, there are, we don't have someone handling the travel, we don't have someone coordinating this or that, we're not getting an email with our travel and then it's not all laid out for us. So you do all the work on yourself, and it's so much more work than people realize or people appreciate. I won't name names. I remember a guy getting released from WWE, one of my friends, coming back to independent wrestling. And he was like, oh my God, I forgot. Like, I've got to do everything myself now. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, welcome back. And he's just like, this is so hard. He's like, I took for granted that someone gave me like, it's the month of April. Here's what you're going to be doing. We took care of it. And it's no less grueling. You're on a plane, you're doing it's horrible. But you didn't have to plan it. You just wear so many hats as an independent professional wrestler. Like, am I point of sale retail? Yes. Am I the designer? Yes. Am I an agent? Yes. Am I the talent? Yes. I got to go to the gym every day? Yes. It's like, holy crap, what am I doing 15 times the work for none of the benefits, essentially? So it's just, I don't know, like the two of us are this spirit of independent professional wrestling. And I love that we can do it in Smash. I believe in that company, and I'm the first ever champion. I like the team they have behind the scenes. It's just always friendly and welcoming. I like that we can do it at the London Music Hall. Like, that is a sick venue. Whenever you come out and they have that, what do you want to call it? We'll call it the Sebtron behind you with the LED lights. It's so cool. So there's just a feel to it. And that balcony, like I don't even know if there's people up there, but any room with a balcony is just going to forever scream ECW to me. So like, I'm going to get psyched. And then that crowd in particular, for whatever reason, is always just so up for it. And I think venues do become part of the experience. And it's that marriage of like, cool match, cool company, cool venue. Like, yes, here we go. So it's exciting.
You mentioned independent wrestling and being an embodiment of independent wrestling. You were part of All In, billed as the biggest independent show ever. You have a victory over MJF. I mean, he's not the champion anymore, but I feel you're owed a title shot whenever that happens. But memories of All In and being part of that show.
Yeah, it was amazing because I felt like nobody was just there. Every seat represented a vote, right? Like, everyone there was, if you go to whatever company's show, there are some people there that just don't even know what they're at. Like, their friend dragged them along, or they just won tickets, or, there are people that are like, oh, they're sort of aloof to it. Whereas I think everyone at All In was there with purpose. So I can't remember how many people were there, but however many people were there, we're all there casting a vote. And it's this thing that I've spent my entire life in, that I believe in. Like, there is a market for like independent professional wrestling, and this other alternative. And that was the first time it was sort of, in a lot of ways, given that chance to shine. So I've done a lot of these massive shows in other countries. So to me, I kept like pinching myself and being like, we're in Chicago? Like, this is the United States? Because sure, like, Cody Rhodes had done giant arenas, and I had done giant arenas, but for a lot of these guys, if not most of them, this was completely, they're like, you could do pro wrestling in buildings that are this big outside of one other company. So just that excitement was like palpable, because I think the wrestlers knew, like, oh, okay, this is something special. We've worked our lives to create this moment. Here we go. And I think the fans were a part of that and on that same page of like, they have in their own ways worked for this and wanted this. And they were, again, casting a vote by sitting in their seat. And they're like, no, this is a thing. We can do this. Like, this is a celebration of independent wrestling. And yeah, it was the first match. I came out. They threw Wrestling is Forever up on the screen, which at that time, that the word wrestling was illegal. So shots were fired out of the gate through me. And that was amazing.
I checked out your Amazon wish list. You posted it on your birthday.
Thank you.
There's good stuff there. But I also saw a book. There are many books. The one that jumped out at me was about Motorhead. A very big Motorhead fan. What's your favorite album, your favorite song by Motorhead? Let's go.
I mean, like, it's so lame to say like Ace of Spades or whatever, but like, it's so good. I remember talking in Japan to Necrobusher about like Orgasmatron. And it was like the funniest, like the weirdest like combination of like people and circumstances. And we're at a bar somewhere in Japan. I don't drink. He's wasted. A homosexual man is trying to buy me drinks, but I'm refusing them. He's trying to tell me like, just let him buy you drinks because then I can have them. And I'm like, no, that's not right. And then let's talk about Orgasmatron. And I was just like, what is happening? There was just so many things like going on at one moment. But yeah, Motorhead rules because it's like, I'm like a big nerd as far as like punk specifically and history and the way that like metalheads and punks can just be like Motorhead.
Yes, always.
And it's inspired so many, like Inepsy is one of my favorite bands, and like they sound like Motorhead. And like Rancid's probably my all-time favorite band, and Matt Friedman's side project Charger is Motorhead. So it's just it always comes back into play, and they were like the first ones to. And I'm a bass player, so it's like that. I don't ascribe to that like mega distorted sound of Lemmy, but the fact that it was so like bass forward and bass heavy is always going to be like an inspiration of sorts as I write songs. And so, yeah, I definitely noticed the shirt.
Can we talk about the bass too? Because that's
Please.
my other thing with you.
Yeah,
what are you playing? What kind of basses are you playing? You're a punk guy, so I mean, you're not going to be like top of the line stuff, but like, what's your gear like?
Oh my God, what a funny question. So my parents bought me an Ibanez when I was in 8th grade, 9th grade. And I was actually this past Christmas thanking my mom because I'm like, that's got to be the best gift I was ever given. Because here we are like 30 years later or something, and I still use it. Someone asked me, sorry.
It's for you.
Someone asked me about like the strings or changing the strings. And I was like, bro, it's a bass. You can't change the strings. So like, that's the level. So you're talking about gear. That's the level I'm at. I was like, you can't change strings on a bass. They come with strings and then you have them till you die. So it's sort of funny because my dad is in a bluegrass band, and every once in a while I'll play with them. Now they are like real musicians, so they're over my head. I don't know note names. I don't know chord names. I don't even know the string names. And up until recently, my buddy would tune my bass for me. So that is like, he would come over and I'm like, I would write songs that, you know, the bass was so out of tune that once he tuned it, I had to relearn them because I'm like, oh, it turns out that note's actually here because like it's been so out of tune. Now I can finally tune my own bass. But what's been so empowering to me, if you had told me this a year ago or 2 years ago, that like, so like, I'm not trying to be like a motivational speaker, but like if you, forever, I was like, I can't write songs because I don't know how to tune a bass. I don't know how to change the strings. I don't know how to, but that's the crazy part. Like you can. And I think that was my story in wrestling. That's my story in music is like, you just figure it out. And that to me is the story of punk. Like the DIY ethos of like, I don't know how to do it. figure it out. So you can do it. Like, so to this day, so I'm in a band now. We have 30 some songs. We're playing shows. It's awesome. I don't know what a E, A, G, D. I don't know, and I don't care because it does not matter. I'm like, this note sounds sweet. What note sounds sweet after that? And that's how I did wrestling too. I remember being in Josh Prohibition's backyard, and we're dumb kids, right? And I was like, maybe someday we can go to Japan. Maybe someday we can go to Mexico. And we're just throwing out like the dumbest things. And then fast forward, now we've done it. And it's like, I don't even know how, like it's just, but you make that way. And I think there's definitely something there. So yeah, I have a Ibanez bass. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad. I know it's lasted 30 years, so must be good enough. And my buddy's got like a way expensive bass. I actually don't like the tone of it. So I like mine a lot more. I don't know if it's just like the 30 years of dirt that have the patina that's built up on it, but it's got a great sound. Again, I said Rancid is my favorite band of all time. Like Matt Freeman's the greatest punk bassist. So I'm not him, obviously, but sort of that bass forward sound as we're talking about with Motorhead and stuff. So I'll have to get you some of our stuff too, because there is like a bass focus.
Yeah, I would love to hear it. I love the analogy between wrestling and music because it does make perfect sense. And also what you're talking about with your bass being comfortable for you, it's your style. It is something that you've honed. It's something that you've become comfortable with. It's something that you love. And someone else's is something that they've loved. It's something that they've done. That's wrestling. That is the difference. And I think that's perfect. That's music. That's the way it is. So it's good stuff. Jeremy, go ahead.
You're part of what I like to call in-time promotions, two promotions that if you were not there at this time, you maybe don't understand the appeal of them: Wrestling Society X and Lucha Underground. And they were, the way they were taped, they were kind of shot all in like a weekend and then aired weekly. Any memories from both of those promotions, and then kind of similarities and differences between those promotions?
Yeah, it's crazy because they always are sort of lumped together. And I understand why, because if the three of us were put in a room and we had to come up with some wrestling promotion, and the only rule that we had to follow was that it has to be different. It has to be visually different. There's a good chance we would settle on, well, all mainstream wrestling is in a giant sterile arena. We should do something with graffiti and underground and a bunker. And likely we would land on that same thing. So I understand the visual cues that make them seem so similar, but they were really, really, really different. Wrestling Society X, we filmed the entire season in 7 or 8 days. So we went to California once, did 1 or 2 episodes a day, whatever it was, filmed it in 7, 8 days, done forever. That was in 2016. Lucha Underground was
2006. 2006 Wrestling Society X. Yeah.
I lost a whole decade getting slammed in the head every day. It's really funny because if you mention anything in like between 2001 and 2010, I can tell you, if you throw out like 2008, I'm like, I did the Ultimate Warrior's last show ever in Madrid. Like, I can tell you everything within that decade. The decade after, I have no idea. Like 2014, I'm like, was that a real year? Like 2017, I'm like, because I think the first thing were like all of these milestones, and then the next decade was just doing them again. Like, people don't care as much when you're like, you go to Qatar the 4th time. And when you go to Germany the 20th time, when you go to Mexico the 12th time. So it was just like, yep, more of that. So yeah, case in point, I do that a lot. But Lucha Underground, it's so cliche, but it was Wrestling Society X on steroids. It was just so much bigger in production and budget and just everything. Like Wrestling Society X, again, let's head there for 7, 8 days. Let's try to do it. We have $1, not literally, but speaking with hyperbole. Whereas Lucha Underground, it was like, let's go, like wardrobe department, of course. Catering, of course. Like hazard pay, yep, that's a thing. Like just it was so Hollywood, so professional, so over the top, down to and including production assistants coming up to us every second and being like, do you need anything? Can I get you anything? What can I? And we're dumb wrestlers, right? So no one's ever given us anything. It's a promoter that's like, oh, nobody's here, no money, go home, you suck, get a job. So all of us are like, no, we're good. And then the production assistants who are used to running around and doing whatever for whoever are just like, you guys this is so, oh my God, we love you. Like, let us do something. Or the first season, they were like lacing up my boots. And that's not an exaggeration. So the wardrobe department people, which was a separate part of the building. And I was like, oh, that's not like, no, that actually makes me uncomfortable. Like, I'll lace up my own boots. And they're like, no, let us like do our job. Like, we have to get you guys dressed and undressed. And this is like what we were hired to do. So it was just like, holy crap, this is amazing. And we were going back and forth to LA for years. So it's hard in retrospect to be like, okay, let me compare that 7 days versus those like 4 or 5 years where I was just going back and forth to LA like every week type thing. So I'm kind of surprised that Wrestling Society X gets brought up so much. Like you said, it's 2006, so it's like we're coming up on like 20 years ago. And it was awesome. I loved it. So I'm happy that it does, but I'm almost surprised because, again, if you're a 20-year-old wrestling fan, you're like, somebody's dad's telling me about something that happened when I was 2. Like, well, what? So it's awesome that it lives on, and it's awesome that how many of us are still wrestling. I feel like if one of us was still alive, I would think that'd be impressive. So the fact that guys are still, it's like Seth Rollins and Matt Sydal and myself and Scorpio Sky and blah, 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 blah. It's like more people are still at it than not. And I'm like, in the wrestling business, which is Russian roulette, how is it possible? So I think it showed like sort of, I suppose, I'm just thinking out loud, it showed like the passion at play, because the fact that these people, even back then, weren't kidding and were going to do this by whatever means necessary is pretty awesome. And then, yeah, Lucha Underground, I think we know how cool it was. I think that will continue to grow and grow. And once we're 10 and 20 years removed from this moment, when the books are written about it, only then will people be like, oh my God, there has not and never will be something like this again. You can't, if three of us start a promotion today, what guys are we going to get that have been in for 20 years, that have been told no, that have a chip on their shoulder, that only need like the chance? There isn't that anymore. Now you have guys that are 6 months in, maybe a year, that are so frustrated, so upset because they think they're entitled to think they deserve a big contract. So you just can't get a Ricochet who's been told no by the WWE to go on your show now. You can't get Matt Cross who's been told no to go on your show. You can't get Shane Strickland who's been told no to go on your show. You can't get, so the 30 of us or whatever it was are like, oh, no? Really? Okay. And that permeated. Now, I wasn't around during ECW, but I feel like that's what I read about in the books. So it was that same thing. So there needs to be a kid starting wrestling now that's told no for the next 20 years. And in 20 years from now, whoever starts the next version of Lucha Underground, whatever that's called, or however that looks, that person will shine. But it will take 2 full decades from today, minimum, before we get something like that again. And that's what I think the future will show us, that you can't get that roster together in the same way, again, that you read about ECW and sort of that chip on their shoulder. And like, I just think of Paul Heyman beyond the mat on the stairs. Like, this is the dance. Like, F you, they're wrong. It was that. That's what we were doing in a speech, you know. That feel permeated everything, and we knew we were a part of something special. And yeah, I miss it. I miss it every day.
Talking about guys who are still active today and still at it, and 20 plus years later, I'm going to bring up Bryan Danielson. That's someone that you had a long career working with in Noah in 2008. Talking about times that just don't exist between, you can tell me what happened in 2008, but not in 2018. Let's talk about 2008. Let's talk about Noah working with Bryan Danielson, and he's starting to wind down his career. Tell us some Danielson stories, and also, is there any plans for Matt Cross to start winding down anytime soon?
Well, answer that one first. No.
Glad we got
Yeah, I never even thought about it. Because, not to go back to another cliche, but wrestling is forever. Nobody quits. So I'm not even going to try. what makes me think I'm going to be the first person in wrestling's history to quit? I know better. I've been around it. I eat, sleep, and breathe it. I'm not, you can't, you don't. Just endless examples. Like, because didn't he say something to the effect of like, I'm going to wind down. I still want to do 5 matches a year or whatever.
Yeah. He said this is the end of his full-time run, but after this year, I still want to do like 5 to 10 matches a year.
Yeah. So like, okay. So the story to me is he's still wrestling. Hell yeah. Like, I'm really similar to Josh Prohibition. That's the guy that got me into wrestling. That's the guy that started me. He's still wrestling. Got a wife, a house, a kid. He's a teacher. He walked away for years, and then came back. So I knew when he came back, holy crap, like I would be the same. And I've never been away from it. I've had like 6 weekends off in 25 years. So it's like, I'm not even going to pretend that like I can walk away. Now, someday that will happen, but that'll happen. Live by the sword, die by the sword, cross that bridge when I get to it. Should I be thinking about it? 100%. Do I think about it? Absolutely not. It's easy to put off when you're like, I just wrote a song. I just booked my band to show. I'm going to go to Europe. You can kick that can down the road really easily because as an independent contractor, I can sit around and worry about the impending doom of my future, or I can get a booking in South Carolina where I've never been, and then that'll be state 47 or 48 on my quest to be the first independent wrestler to ever do all 50. I'm like, yeah, I'll focus on that instead. So again, is that going to bite me in the butt? Totally. Am I going to look back at this, laugh and regret it? Yes. But whatever. Forever onward and upward. Yeah, no, 2008 was awesome. I remember tagging with Danielson, and we're coming out, and the music hits. It's the final battle, and it's Japan, so everyone's just quiet and respectful and waiting for us to come out. And we're getting ourselves amped up, and he kind of looks over at me, and he's just like so used to crowds in the U.S. like singing along and sort of participating in the music, and he's just like, "Whoa, this is really weird." Like nobody cares. I guess okay, It was such a funny moment, just highlighting the difference in the crowds. But he's such a cool guy. I remember giving him on that tour. There's like a Ghost Mice, HAJ split. These two punk bands. So you gotta check out this HAJ. They're so good. They're amazing. And my favorite songs by them at the time were on this split. So I gave it to him, and then he is like, HAJ was good, but I liked Ghost Mice even more. And I'm just like, what? Like, that wasn't even like what you're supposed to hear. But I was like, you do? Like, this guy's awesome. And he's like kind of an anomaly in the wrestling business. Like, he very much would be like, okay, the match is done. Like, I'm going to read a book now with words, So it's just totally in his own lane, made his own path. And, I can certainly identify with that. So yeah, he's awesome. And that, it's crazy because like we talked about this like decade that I lost, or however you want to frame it. It's like, I'm like, that was 2008 for sure. Hell yeah. And exactly like you noted, I'm like 2018. I'm like, what? Did I do anything? What did I do? So funny. Yeah, I mean, I saw, because we had a match I'd love to see. I wrestled Marufuji in a match I'd love to see. I think I had a match with Kenta I'd love to see. It's crazy too how I was almost, I don't want to call it a victim of, but in some ways, a lot of my career was like pre-GIF and like like mega internet times. So I suffered from that because like when I was like hanging out with Ultimate Warrior, now would have been like on my Facebook Live, here's me and Warrior hitting the gym, or it's like now it's just memories that I alone have that are waiting for a book someday that no one knows. and it's like, and then I'll have these moments where I'm like, why doesn't everybody know that? I'm like, oh, there wasn't like, that wasn't a thing. Like I'm touring Australia with Hulk Hogan. We had Thanksgiving together. It's like, I don't even know if Instagram existed, or if it did, it was like in its infancy, or I didn't even have an account in 2009. So it's like, unless you just like are mega wrestling nerd, like no one knows this stuff. So yeah, like that tour of Japan. I remember, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but I remember the plane landed in Japan. It was Nigel McGuinness, Bryan Danielson, myself, and Bison Smith. Or his name? Why am I blanking on that? But
Tyson
yeah.
Kidd?
No. Bison. He passed away. He was always a Noah, but American guy. Anyway, we all landed, and then like everyone gets their computer out and like instantly starts like computing, and like they were like, "Where's your computer?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't like a laptop or whatever. Like I don't even own one. Like I didn't bring one. Like what? And they're like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What am I gonna do?" And like, "We're here for 3 weeks. Like you need a computer." And I was like, "Oh, I thought we were gonna hang out." Like, and it was like day one. It was like, "No, we're gonna go in our rooms and go on the internet." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I thought we were hanging out." Like, so yeah, it's like the self promotion wrestling is so big, but I'm a touch old school where I like doesn't come as natural to me because like when I started that wasn't a thing. So I'm a little envious about the kids that can do it right now.
Okay, hold on. We got to Jeremy before you go back to Hogan. Thanksgiving. What?
Yeah, did the Hulkamania tour of Australia in 2009.
Yeah.
So I essentially got a call and it was like, "Do you want to go to Australia?" And I was like, "Oh my God, yes." And they're like, "Let me tell you about it. The main event is going to be Hulk Hogan." I'm like, "What?" Versus Ric Flair, who had just retired. And I'm like, "Oh, I thought this was real," So I literally was just like, "Oh, okay, sounds good." Then I remember my girlfriend at the time was in the car with me, and she's like, "What was that about?" And I was like, she didn't know what wrestling is. So I'm like, "Oh my God, somebody called me and just told me Santa Claus is wrestling the Easter Bunny, and do I want to do it?" So it's clearly BS, whatever. So I didn't even believe it when I got the call, because I just thought it was too fantastical. I'm like, Hulk Hogan's not wrestling Ric Flair every night. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And yeah, like lived it and breathed it. Like we were in Australia for 2 weeks. It was one of the best tours, if not the best tour I've ever done. Hulk Hogan was like working his butt off. Like we would have just like, okay, the next 2 days are off. So just you're in Australia, like go surfing or whatever, which I did. And then he would have to drive here and there and here and there and do this promotional event and this and everyone knows who he is. He's getting swamped everywhere. It was just totally a different world where like I'd be sitting like next to him at an airport or something and everyone's getting his picture autograph. He has no time to himself. It's really crazy. And then I would see like he would walk away and some of the people would still be around. And I remember hearing people being like, "Who was that?" So there were some people that were bugging him for autographs or photos that didn't even know who he was. They just knew there was like a melee. And I was like seeing that part of fame where I'm like, man, you give up all your free time and like some of the people that are taking it from you don't even appreciate it or know who you are. It's just a part of the, like, I need to be in on that too. And I was like, that's kind of wild. Like, I don't know if I was envious of like that position. Because again, he had to work of the 2 weeks we were there. He worked all 14 days. We had 4 matches and then they had these like amazing days off. So yeah, it was an incredible tour, incredible time. Loved it. And yeah. And he always took the extra time with everybody going into it. Like I was a little Hulkamaniac, like 100%. So I'm thinking like, it's Hulk Hogan. He's not going to talk to anybody. He's going to do his own thing. And like, awesome. I get it. I remember day one, he's just like came over. And as far as wrestling goes, like it was one of, if not the only times I was sort of starstruck because I was like standing there and I'm like, "Oh, Hulk Hogan's coming over. Hulk Hogan's going to come over." Like, and I don't remember if he introduced himself as Terry or Hulk Hogan or whatever, but he just came over, introduced himself, and I'm like, "Oh, he'll do it in passing. He won't break stride. He'll be on his way." Comes, introduces himself, sort of stands there, and I'm like, "Oh, we're still doing it?" Like, I'm like, I mean, I guess how's it going, Hulk Hogan? And I'm like, "Oh, we're gonna like talk?" Like, I didn't like, whoa. I remember doing one of the nights, maybe Sydney. I've got my gear on. I'm walking toward gorilla position, getting ready to go out. There's like 16,000 people. I've got my eyes closed. I'm just trying to focus. And once you're in that part, you could be anywhere in the world. You could be wrestling anywhere. That part of the process is the same. So I'm not thinking I'm in Australia. I'm not thinking I'm with Hulk Hogan. I've just got my eyes closed, trying to focus. I open my eyes. There's Hulk Hogan. And I had this moment where I'm like, that dude looks exactly like Hulk Hogan. What is going on? And why is he in gear? Like, why is he dressed up like Hulk Hogan? So in this like moment of like, what's happening? And he's like, go get him, big dog. And cause I'm on next and I'm like, I will, Hulk Hogan. And I'm like, what is even happening right now? Cause I'm like, how do you even respond to that? Like, it doesn't even make any sense. So I'm just like, you're used to like your buddy or whatever. And you're like, yeah, dude, like, I was like, okay, fist bump Hulk Hogan. Like, here I go to do the wrestling. I was like, this is 100% insane. So there was a surreal touch to the whole tour.
My last one for you, Matt. You're an Ohio guy. I'm in Ohio. Ohio gets a bad rap from a lot of people who are not from Ohio. What's a good thing about Ohio? Like, if you come to Ohio, you got to check this out. Any hidden gem spots that you're a fan of?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'm up near Cleveland, so Northeast Ohio is so underrated. People all the time are like, again, I've been to 36 countries. I've wrestled in 28. I've been to all 50 states. I've wrestled in 46 or 47. People are like, I can't believe you live in Ohio. I'm born and raised. They're like, how have you not lived here or there or wherever? I'm not saying per se that Northeast Ohio is the greatest place in the world, but I have literally seen a good portion of it. And it is, I can say without a doubt, it's underrated. People think of Ohio, I think, and only think like farms and backwoods. Which, sure, there are elements of that exists. But we're on, every time I ever bring someone to Cleveland, we go to Lake Erie. And when people hear lake, they think they can see the other side. They're not thinking waves. They're not thinking shipwrecks. They're not thinking death. They're not thinking the other side is Canada and you're not swimming there. And, so every time they're like, there's a beach. Like, we are the North Coast. So they're like, there are beaches and there's waves and there's surfers like in Ohio. Like, what's going on? And then you go to Cuyahoga Valley National Park, which I live next to, which is Ohio's only national park. And there's these ledges and waterfalls. And it looks like something you would think of when you think of like a vacation to like Vermont or New Hampshire. And I'm like, no, that's right here. There's like a majestic waterfall, like right there. There are deer in my backyard every single day. Raccoons, beavers, bald eagles, like just the nature, fox, coyotes, like, so I feel there's so much beautiful like nature and stuff that just people don't think about. Again, they're thinking of like just corn or something, and then when they come here and it's just like these beautiful wooded areas and then the beach in the same. Now the winters are cold, so that's part of it.
Miserable outside right now.
Yeah, the winter is going to be really cold, but it's an underrated area, and yeah, I definitely appreciate it. And just the metro parks. If you come to Cuyahoga Valley National Park and the ledges, as a quick aside, years ago when the guys were coming through, Sami Zayn, Bryan Danielson, they wanted to go to the national park, so they stopped by, picked me up, and we all went, and that was pretty amazing, and got some photos and stuff. But even those dudes like cruising through, were like, hey, we gotta come check this out. So I was like hoping we would come across some kind of wrestling fan, because it's like 11 a.m. on like a Tuesday or something. And I'm like, if there's a wrestling fan, like they're going to like, we're coming down these like stone staircases in the middle of the woods. You just be like, what? So we didn't come across anyone, but I was like, this is going to make somebody's just life. I hope we run into somebody.
Well, if they come through again and you go back here, please send me a message. My wife is freaking out about this. Like, he took him to Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Like, we need to go here. We need to just go to see if any wrestlers are going. She's saying, tell them to bring it back. So if they come back and they go back, please shoot me a message. And so my wife will be very thrilled with that.
Sami Zayn was here like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, you can't say that. Oh, Matt, you can't say that.
Every time he comes through, yeah.
I'm about to get a message of like, why did no one inform me that Sami Zayn was 20 minutes away 3 weeks ago? She's big Sami Zayn fan. So.
Same. Every time he comes through, he stops and we hang out. So it's really funny. Because I'm always thinking like, and the 3 weeks ago thing is, I don't know the times, but you guys likely will, because I remember he stopped over, we hung out, and the next day, I see like a clip online of Punk returning, because it's the biggest thing in wrestling history or whatever. So then I'm watching this clip because I'm like, oh, no way, cool. And then in the clip, you can see in the corner the ring. And I'm like, whoa, a cage match, like wild. And you see Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn. And I was like, oh, wait, oh my God. Like, I knew he was like in the WWF, but I'm like, what? This dude's in like a cage match in the main event with Roman Reigns where Punk returns? And I'm like, we were eating, like drinking coffee yesterday. Like, what? So even I don't understand, like, you know, Gargano lives here, so I was there on Sunday. Like, you sometimes forget that, like, because, you know, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time, and then you've known these people for, like, your whole life. So it's just, like, strange when, because, like, for every guy that becomes the most famous dude of all time, another guy, like, doesn't do anything. But we're all doing the same thing, taking the same bumps. So everyone's, like, on this, like, sort of level playing field, and we're like, yeah, we're all dudes, like, dudes. And then to the outside world, it's like, that's where the hierarchy comes in, but it's not based in like reality. It's hard to explain, but because you're like, yeah, these are all my dudes, and then you're like, whoa, some people think some of these dudes are mega cool or something, and they are, but it's just strange.
No, I get it. It's just your dorky friends. Everyone has that dorky
right. Yeah, we like literally played board games and like we're like really excited about it.
Yeah, it's just normal dudes being dudes.
Exactly.
Before we let you go, Matt, we got a game that we like to play. It's called Partner, Promo, or Punch in the Face. I pick 3 wrestlers, and you're going to pick which one you want to partner with in a tag match, which one you want to have promo off with in the ring, and which one you want to punch in the face and have a singles match with. I'm using the Blackpool Combat Club because you've had matches with 3 of these guys in your career. Bryan Danielson, Claudio Castagnoli, and John Moxley. Matt Cross, partner promo, punch in the face.
Can we just like hang out in the park with all of them?
I mean, yeah, sure.
Do a book club with them.
That's so, like, this is not in the spirit of the game at all, but like I went to Lucerne, Switzerland, where Claudio's from. In the top 3 places that I've seen in the world. It's so beautiful, genuinely breathtaking. And I remember thinking, this guy left, all of us would hope to become millionaires following our passions. And then maybe if we made it to the upper echelon of the world, we'd have enough money and enough clout and enough whatever to then move to Lucerne, Switzerland, would be the end goal of anyone on the planet. And I'm like, that's where this guy started. And he said, I'm going to leave my friends and my family and move to the United States and pursue pro wrestling via the independents. Like, he rules, and I already had so much respect for him. But when I lived that, I was like, this dude, no one can grasp that. I'm like, we need to be cheering so loud. Like, that's the craziest risk of all time. He moved to like the middle of like PA or something, like from Lucerne. So I just couldn't even, in those inevitable dark times where he's like, did I make the right choice? Like, it's, so many of us would have been like, I'm going back to Lucerne and I'm going to look at the sunset and cry because it's so beautiful. Like, what am I doing in like central PA? Oh man. So I guess, do I want to punch him because we could have such sick matches?
Sure.
Yeah.
We had some amazing matches in a group called EWA that was out of Toronto years ago. Then in a lot of ways, I feel like Smash is like carrying their torch. They were just ahead of their time. Someday there'll be a documentary about them. It's called EWA Hardcore. They were using Okada, Ultimo Dragon, Chris Sabin, myself, Seth Rollins. If you look at the roster now, it's an unbelievable fantasy league that's 100% impossible. I've had people be like, it was an independent in Toronto. It seems unbelievable. But they, in a lot of ways, inspired Smash. And a lot of the old fans like still come to Smash shows and like, I know you from UWA, blah, blah, blah. So Claudio and I had a couple matches there that were amazing because he's amazing. So I think I want to punch him lightly because he could kill me. Only because we could have like he's like the greatest base of all time. We could have the sickest matches. So I thought that'd be the hardest one. I was like, you trying to give me heat, brother? I was like, I don't want to punch anybody, but I want to punch him because then we could have sick matches. And if I punched him as hard as I could, it probably wouldn't even hurt him. He's like invincible. So we'll punch him. I also want to wrestle Danielson, but I guess I'll tag with him just because we did tag. And I guess the whole, like, we're kind of like bearded punks. So it felt like there was it felt like it made sense. Wrestling fans often, they're sort of short-sighted in the way that it's like, you have a beard, you're like Bryan Danielson, or people without the like touchstones. If you just show up at a show in West Virginia and people are like, it's like Bryan Danielson. So I've been getting that for decades already anyway. And they're not thinking, I bet he tagged with him in Japan. Because they're like, there's no way he's even met him. And like, did he get his autograph? And, they don't get it. So it's like, no, we tagged and probably should be tagging now and come out to Ghost Mice and like, let's go nuts. So just, yeah, and he's like a cool guy to travel with, and we could do some cool stuff. Again, I wish we had a singles match in Japan that I loved, and it's like, I don't even know if it was filmed, like, I'd love to see it. So I guess I will tag with him. He's a great mind for wrestling. So that leaves me to promo with Moxley, which is cool because he's an Ohio guy too, right? So
Yep.
I remember wrestling him in like Chillicothe, Ohio, which is like the original capital of Ohio, and then he was like, we got to get you down in HWA, brother, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, maybe it's kind of far. And then it was like trajectory takeoff for him, which is, sick because Ohio, man. Like I always say, we're horrible at real sports, but like we kill it when it comes to pro wrestling. Like Ohio.
The lineage of wrestlers from Ohio is second to none almost.
And I feel like we like grew up in this space where it's like, the drive, the catch, the shot. It's like you lose, you suck. Not only do you lose, but always in the most heartbreaking, horrible, like movie way, like just rips your soul out, like like that's what we're bred in. So I feel like collectively it was like, no, man, we got to rise above this. Like we can either succumb to that and be like, man, this is dark. Like there are movies like Major League made about how much we suck. like there's like this like generational cultural trauma. So I feel like on a subconscious level, we've collectively been like, no, dude, like here we go. So to see, like Gargano and stuff like rise above and like, he's obviously killing it. He's going to kill it way more for a lot longer. And when he eventually makes it to like the top and they do his like full story thing with WWE's production, it's going to be so good. Like I was at the places he was living coming up. Just wait till you see these places. Like this dude came from nothing. And I don't know if that story has been told. Like just there's rough Cleveland stuff. And it's like, but again, I feel like that was this subconscious motivation that like the Miz is at Normandy High School and Dolph Ziggler's wrestling at Kent State. And like, we just lived and breathed this environment that I think ties into like, no, dude, because it's got to be statistically an outlier of like, why is Ohio like, not that wrestlers don't come from other places, but again, that's like the statistic numbers based on population, etc. It's like there's a weirdly large amount, which is awesome. So like hell yeah. So yeah, I guess I'll promo with John Moxley and set up some AW Man Events brother.
Thank God. That was fantastic. Matt Cross, we're going to catch you this Sunday at Smash Wrestling's Any Given Sunday 10. Go check that out. He's going to face Von Vertigo, a match that's 10 years in the making. Very much looking forward to seeing that and hearing all about it. Get your tickets. If you want to go, you can either walk up to the venue at London Music Hall or go to smash-wrestling.com and go get your tickets now. Matt, before we let you go, is there anything you want to plug and get out of the way?
Oh, yeah. Please check out wrestlingisforever.com. Like we talked about throughout the interview, I came up with the idea, but then I almost stopped myself because I was like, well, clearly you need a website for that. I don't know how to do website, and which is an excuse and a good excuse. But then I had that moment with myself where I'm like, good excuses are still excuses. Like you can figure it out, especially in the age of YouTube and this and that. So I had to put in the work and it sucked. I was like, I feel like I'm back in school. Like I specifically became a wrestler so I could wake up at noon, not wear a tie, and not go to school. And then I'm like doing all this work and I'm like, I'm in school. This is horrible. So there was work involved, but created the website by myself, like created this whole thing. So it's just me. I remember ordering from a punk mail order back in the day. And there was a band called 25 to Life. They're kind of horrible, but whatever. The singer is this crazy guy, Rick to Life. I bought a t-shirt. I'm a little kid, right? So it comes in the mail, and Rick to Life wrote, "Thank you, Rick." And it blew my little kid mind, because in my mind, anyone that you know about is Hulk Hogan famous. So I'm like, Rick to Life had the time to write me a personal thank you note? Like, this is bigger than the president. Like, this is, the president signs stuff all the time. I'm like, Rick to Life is busy, man. Like, so that stuck with me. So if you order something from me that I designed, that I stock behind me, after this interview, I've got an order next to me that I will fold up, and then I'm going to the post office later today. So I'm shipping the stuff out personally. So it's just that connection between, because I think that gets lost. You know, if you order something from Roman Reigns, that dude's not going to the post office. You know what I'm saying? But again, as a punk, it only made sense. I've had offers of people to buy it. They're like, we could do all that for you. And I'm like, yeah, you could, but like, then I'm only going to be loosely aware of the orders. It's going to be like some number at the end of the month. And I like that connection of like, when I get the email that I had an order that I have to pack up, I'm like, yeah, like, this is sick. Like people cast a vote to go to All In and create an alternative. I think they're casting a vote for me. So I'm like, I appreciate that. Like, I'm going to, even when I'm folding the shirts, it's ridiculous because who cares? But I'm like, it's so careful, as if they're going to know, like, this was folded really carefully. But I put, like, there's that layer of love in it. So, and without it, I don't know if I could, I'd have to, like, you know, work Quiznos or something. So, please check out wrestlingsforever.com. It keeps me going. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Good luck this weekend. And thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
We'll see you next time.